Book that I'm really fond of is Anne Frank's The Diary of a Young Girl. See, it's such an old book that I have, and it's a true story. It's beautiful, so emotional, so sensitively written, just beautiful. If you read it, you're going to enjoy yourself. It's so emotional, it moves you to tears most of the time. So here we go. It is one of the millions, the Jews. She was a Jew, and how her life ended tragically in the concentration camp of Bergen-Belsen in March 1945. 3 months later, she would have been 16. 2 months later, Holland was liberated by the Allies. So this is a diary of a young girl, and she calls the diary Kitty. It's, if you read it, how she gets the diary on her birthday, and she's so happy about it. And soon after, they were captured, and they had to go into hiding. So it was first published in 1947 in Holland. So it was translated from Dutch into nearly a score of languages, including German. And Anne Frank, The Diary of a Young Girl, has sold over 5 million copies in its American edition, alone. And I'm going to give you the ISBN number later. It's a must read. See, I'm going to read a little from the preface and the introduction. Preface is given by George Stevens. Let me read a little about it. Of all the many remarkable things about Anne Frank, I believe the most important is the fact of her survival, a survival contained between the covers of a small red checkered cloth-covered diary book. And within this diary exists a young girl touched with a perceptive genius on one hand and an almost consuming sensitivity on the other. And combined with these is the most exquisite sense of feeling and knowledge of life at its finest. I believe in the good of men, said Anne, with her quiet smile. And it is a remarkable book written by this young girl, and we know that the young are not afraid of telling the truth. Now I'm reading the introduction by Eleanor Roosevelt. It is one of the wisest and the most moving commentaries on war and its impact on human beings that I've ever read. Anne Frank's account of the changes wrought upon 8 people hiding out from the Nazis for 2 years during the occupation of Holland, living in constant fear and isolation, imprisoned not only by the terrible outward circumstances of war, but inwardly by themselves, made me intimately and shockingly aware of war's greatest evil, the degradation of the human spirit. At the same time, Anne's diary makes potently clear the ultimate shining nobility of that spirit. Despite the horror and the humiliation of their daily lives, these people never gave up. Annie herself, and most of all, it is a portrait which emerges so vividly and so appealingly from this book, matured very rapidly in these 2 years, the crucial years from 13 to 15, in which change is so swift and so difficult for every young girl. Sustained by her warmth and her wit, her intelligence, and the rich resources of her inner life, Annie wrote and thought much of the time about things which very sensitive and talented adolescent without the threat of death will write. Her relations with her parents, her developing self-awareness, the problems of growing up. These are the thoughts and expressions of a young girl living under extraordinary conditions, and for this reason, her diary tells us much about ourselves and about our own children. And for this reason too, I feel how close we all are to Annie's experience, how very much involved we are in her short life and in the entire world. Annie's diary is an appropriate monument to her fine spirit and to the spirits of those who have worked and are working still for peace. Reading it is a rich and rewarding experience, writes Eleanor Roosevelt, and I agree. Really, if you read it, it's rich and a rewarding experience. And when Anne writes the book in her diary, she writes, "Dear Kitty, I hope I shall be able to confide in you completely as I've never been able to do to anyone before, and I hope that you will be a great support and comfort to me." So, in the introduction, in the preface, that is, it's by George Stevens, who asks Mr. Frank a question to which I felt I must have the answer. "Can you tell me something about what occurred when the Gestapo broke into this room?" So they're sitting in that room, very room where they were in hiding. Because then he asks a question. "The mission was to destroy. How was it that they did not find and destroy the diary?" While Mr. Frank bravely described what happened on that fateful day, I looked at that little volume in my hand and realized that Annie's persistent belief in the triumph of the good in human nature was best exemplified by the very survival of her writing. On that day in August 1944, Sergeant Silver Bore of the Green Police and 4 subordinates were executing just another phase of what Hitler and the Goebbels had conceived as a final solution of the Jewish problem. Their mission was to remove the Jews from Holland. While so doing, they were to loot and to plunder, and most importantly, they were to leave no record or documentation of this work. While searching the attic, the sergeant picked up Mr. Frank's briefcase. He asked if there were any jewels. Mr. Frank said there was nothing but papers. There was nothing but papers. The sergeant opened it. Disappointed, he threw the papers and the diary to the floor and put the silverware and the Hanukkah candlesticks into the briefcase. The little group, which had spent the last 25 months in this attic, was led away. The room was left in a disarray. However, there remained on the floor the diary of a young girl. The Nazi soldiers had failed in their mission. They had left behind a statement to the world. They had left behind a comment on their work. They had left behind a story of a girl in adolescence, her troubles with her parents, and her young love. In this diary, which was to be discovered later, remained a story of great adventure, which was to symbolize a triumph of the human spirit. Through the survival of this book, the thoughts, the hopes, and the beliefs of Anne Frank will endure forever, writes George Steve. So, it's so, again, I'm just going to write a diary. I'm going to read a diary entry of Sunday, June 14, 1942. On Friday, June 12th, I woke up at 6 o'clock, and no wonder, it was my birthday. But of course, I was not allowed to get up at that hour, so I had to control my curiosity until 6:45. Then I could bear it no longer and went to the dining room, where I received a warm welcome from Moochie, the cat. Soon after 7, I went to Mummy and Daddy and then to the sitting room to undo my presents. The first to greet me was you. Now you is this diary. Possibly the nicest of all. Then on the table there were a bunch of roses, a plant, and some peonies, and more arrived during the day. I got masses of things from Mummy and Daddy and was thoroughly spoilt by various friends. Among other things, I was given camera, obscura, a party game, lots of sweets, chocolates, a puzzle, a brooch, Tales and Legends of Netherlands by Joseph Cohen, Daisy's Mountain Holiday, a terrific book, and some money. Now I can buy the myths of Greece and Rome. Grand. Then Lice called for me and we went to school. During recess, I treated everyone to sweet biscuits and then we had to go back to our homes. Now I must stop. Bye-bye. We're going to be great pals. And she named the diary Kitty. She would address it, Dear Kitty. So I'm going to read the first, where she gives the name. That is Saturday, June 20th, 20 June 1942. Dear Kitty, I'll start straight away. It is so peaceful at the moment. Mummy and Daddy are out and Margot has gone to play ping pong with some friends. I've been playing ping pong a lot myself lately. We ping pongers are very partial to the ice cream, especially in summer when one gets warm at the game. So we usually finish up with a visit to the nearest ice cream shop, Delphi or Oasis, where Jews are allowed. We've given up scrounging for extra pocket money. Oasis is usually full, and among a large circle of friends, we always manage to find some kind-hearted gentleman or boyfriend who presents us with more ice cream than we could devour in a week. I expect you will be rather surprised at the fact that I should talk of boyfriends at my age. Alas, one simply can't seem to avoid it at our school. As soon as a boy asks if he may bicycle home with me or we get into conversation, 9 out of 10 times I can be sure that he will fall head over heels in love immediately and simply won't allow me out of his sight. After a while, it cools down, of course, especially as I take little notice of ardent looks and pedal blithely on. If it gets so far that they begin about asking father, I swerve slightly on my bicycle, my satchel falls. The young man is bound to get off and hand it to me, by which time I have introduced a new topic of conversation. These are the most innocent types. You get some who blow kisses or try to get hold of your arm, but then they are definitely knocking at the wrong door. I get off my bicycle and refuse to go further in their company, or I pretend to be insulted and tell them in no uncertain terms to clear off. There, the foundation of our friendship is laid till tomorrow. Yours, Annie. So you see how interesting it is and how it goes on. So let me read at random, say a short letter. Say it just opened up to page 227, Friday, 23rd June 1944. Dear Kitty, nothing special going on here. The English have begun their big attack on Cherbourg. According to Pym and Van Daan, we are sure to be free by October 10. The Russians are taking part in the campaign and yesterday began their offensive near Witebsk. It's exactly 3 years to a day since the Germans attacked. We've hardly got any potatoes. From now on, we are going to count them out for each person. Then everyone knows what he's getting. Yours, Annie. So can you see that? That how she, the small letters that she, small entry diaries, not letters. They are entry diaries that she makes in these. So I'm just going to, Tuesday, 1 August 1944. Dear Kitty, little bundle of contradictions. That's how I ended my last letter, and That's how I'm going to begin this one. A little bundle of contradictions. Can you tell me exactly what it is? What does contradiction mean? Like so many words, it can mean two things: contradiction from without and contradiction from within. The first is the ordinary, not giving in easily, always knowing best, getting in the last word. So, all the unpleasant qualities for which I'm renowned. The second nobody knows about, that's my own secret. I've already told you before that I have, as it were, a dual personality. One half embodies my exuberant cheerfulness, making fun of everything, my high spiritedness, and above all, the way I take everything lightly. This includes not taking offense at a flirtation, a kiss, an embrace, a dirty joke. This side is usually lying in wait and pushes away the other, which is much better, deeper, and purer. You must realize that no one knows Annie's better side, and that's why most people find me so insufferable. Certainly, I am a giddy clown for one afternoon, but then everyone's had enough of me for another month. Really, it's just the same as a love film is for deep thinking people, simply a diversion, amusing just for once, something which is soon forgotten, not bad, but certainly not good. I loathe having to tell you this, but why shouldn't I? If I know it's true anyway, my lighter superficial side will always be too quick for the deeper side of me, and that's why it'll always win. You can't imagine how often I've already tried to push this Annie away, Annie away, to cripple her, to hide her, because after all, she's only half of what's called Annie. But it doesn't work, and I know too why it doesn't work. I'm awfully scared that everyone who knows me, as I always am, will discover that I have another side, a finer and better side. I'm afraid they'll laugh at me, think I'm ridiculous and sentimental, not take me seriously. I'm used to not being taken seriously, but it's only the light-hearted Annie that's used to it and can bear it. The deeper Annie is too frail for it. Sometimes, if I really compel the good Annie to take the stage for a quarter of an hour, she simply shrivels up as soon as she has to speak and lets Annie number one take over, and before I realize it, she has disappeared. Therefore, the nice Annie is never present in company, has not appeared one single time so far, but almost always predominates when we are alone. I know exactly how I'd like to be, how I am inside, but alas, I'm only like this for myself, and perhaps that's why, no, I'm sure it's the reason why I say I've got a happy nature within, and why other people think I've got a happy nature without. I'm guided by the pure Annie within, but outside I'm nothing but a frolicsome little goat who's broken loose. As I've already said, I never utter my real feelings about anything, and that's how I've acquired the name of chaser after boys, flirt, know-all reader of love stories. The cheerful Annie laughs about it, gives cheeky answers, shrugs her shoulders indifferently, behaves as if she doesn't care. But, oh dearie me, the quiet Annie's reactions are just the opposite. If I'm to be quite honest, then I must admit that it does hurt me that I try terribly hard to change myself, but I'm always fighting against a more powerful enemy. A voice sobs within me. There you are, that's what's become of you. You're uncharitable, you look superfluous and peevish. People dislike you, and all because you won't listen to the advice given you by your own better half. Oh, I would like to listen, but it doesn't work. If I'm quiet and serious, everyone thinks it's a new comedy, and then I have to get out of it by turning it into a joke. But to mention my own family, who are sure to think I'm ill, make me swallow pills for headaches and nerves, feel my neck and my head to see whether I'm running a temperature, ask if I'm constipated, and criticize me for being in a bad mood. I can't keep that up. If I'm watched to that extent, I start by getting snappy, then unhappy, and finally I twist my heart around again so that the bad is on the outside and the good is on the inside, and keep on trying to find a way of becoming what I would so like to be, and what I could be if there weren't any other people living in the world. Yours, Annie. So we come to the epilogue. Let me read out the epilogue. That Annie's diary ends here on August 4th, 1944. So all the occupants, together with Krahler, Kufus, were arrested and sent to German and Dutch concentration camps. The secret annex was plundered by the Gestapo. Among a pile of old books, magazines, and newspapers which were left lying on the floor, Miep and Ellie found Annie's diary. Apart from a very few passages which are of little interest to the reader, the original text has been printed. Of all the occupants of the secret annex, Annie's father alone returned. Krahler and Kufus, who withstood the hardships of the Dutch camp, were able to go home to their families. In March 1945, 2 months before the liberation of Holland, Annie died in the concentration camp at Bergen-Belsen. So really, I mean, this is one of the most moving personal documents to come out of World War II, wrote the Philadelphia Inquirer. So Anne Frank's diary lives on, the conscience of a generation, a vital, beautiful, urgent message to all of us, a message we must not forget. So it's a must read.